Back on Get Up, and if you're just joining us, where you been? There's been a lot this morning. Again, the news late last night, Draymond Green suspended for Game 3 of this first-round series between Golden State and Sacramento in the wake of that incident involving Domantas Sabonis of the Sacramento Kings, and then all of the histrionics that followed. And if you are just joining us here, let me go over all the things that Adrian Wojnarowski just reported to us as Dominique has once again changed his jacket, which is just hilarious to me. Just adding hilarious comedic relief on an otherwise quite serious morning. But for all of the questions that you may have, if you're waking up this morning and just hearing this news, you may be thinking to yourself, well, we did not think that there would be a suspension. I certainly was quite surprised when I woke up to this news this morning. But every question we have raised here this morning, Woj had answers to. Why did this suspension take place when clearly Sabonis began the act by flopping and then grabbing Draymond's leg? Woj with the answer. The league said it was the Oh, stand by. Stand by. This is going to get interesting now. Hold on a minute. Stephen A. Smith has made his way into the studio.
What's going on, y'all?
Can I just confirm his mic is on? We're good? You guys are hearing him?
What's going on, y'all? How y'all doing?
What is your reaction to all this?
Well, first of all, what the hell is Dominique Foxworth on TV?
Yeah.
With his hairline looking like mine. I thought that was for me, Dominic. I thought that was for me, bro. I mean, you got to leave the receipt hairline to me and George Jefferson. You can't be doing it. What's going on, Al? How you doing, man? Ladies.
It's time for me to get what's up, Stephen A.
Hello.
Big Pop.
What's up, baby?
What's going on? What's the problem
Now,
with
for those of you who did not see it last night, and we played it earlier this morning, the guys on TNT, your dear friends,
yes,
Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal, had some fun at your expense, at the expense of your hairline last night. How did you feel about that?
First of all, the first thing I did was text them.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to get both of y'all. I'm going to get both of y'all. They were cracking up, dying, laughing, texting me back. Like, we love you, man. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get y'all back. Listen, Derek White is a very, very good player.
Yeah.
I'm sure a very, very good man. You know, I wish him nothing but the best. But I don't think my hairline looks like you know, I think it looks a little better than that.
Can we get a side-by-side? Because I don't know.
Really? That's what we doing, Kim? That's what we doing? That's what we doing? That's what we doing? I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? I mean, listen. Now, if you told me and Dominique looked the same this morning, I mean, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. Oh, Shaq, Chuck, I swear, somehow, some way, I'm going to get y'all. I got to go to work. But I'm going to get both of y'all. Y'all know I'm good for it.
Very quickly, because I know you have to run and then do first take. Give us a quick sneak peek. The news on Draymond Green is obviously enormous. There's no doubt you guys will be all over it on first take all morning long as everyone laughs hysterically at the hair. Just give us a quick preview of what your take is going to be over there on Draymond.
I have a lot of things to say this morning about the league office that I don't usually say. That's one point. But I also have a few things to say about Draymond that I don't usually say. See y'all on first take.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so
Everybody.
That's a professional tease, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so 9 minutes from now, Stephen A. with his reaction on first take, less significantly to Charles Barkley and to Shaq, more significantly, as you heard. It sounds like, well, I won't even put words in his mouth. He has more than enough of his own, and he will be ready to go with all of that. Again, if I were to pick up where I was, Woj telling us that the reasons for the suspension were, A, the escalation of the act, that yes, Domantas Sabonis grabbed his leg, but that Draymond escalated it. B, that the theatrics afterwards, not leaving the court and getting into it with the crowd and everything else that happened, that yes, those things did factor into the decision. And C, the history, which they had told us already in the press release, that all those things factored into the decision to suspend him. He also told us, Woj did, that the Warriors' reaction, in a word, was livid to this news. It came as a surprise to them, as it did to many. Dominique Foxworth, you were not with us for that conversation with Woj. What's your reaction to what we now learn from the questions we asked to Adrian Wojnarowski?
I mean, most importantly, me and Stephen A. are not in the same neighborhood as far as hairline is concerned. Mine is not perfect, but I mean, I don't got that cul-de-sac. But anyway, I think that if I'm the Warriors, also I understand why they're livid. I agree with them, and he also made the point that there's no real appeal. There's no real path to an appeal. Normally, in a situation like this, at least in other leagues, you would expect that the appeal would come through and they would postpone the suspension until that was heard. So that's an avenue that it sounded like Woj said was not an opportunity. And also, I think that what the league didn't say is that this was not just about suspending Draymond Green or sending a message to Draymond Green. I think it was about the entire league. And I think it's reflecting, it's also takes into account what happened with Russell Westbrook arguing with the fan recently. I think that the escalation of Draymond yelling and calling the fans names and hyping everybody up, as entertaining as it is, and yeah, we blew out the whole show today to talk about this. So yeah, it's kind of good for the league a little bit to have us talking about this, but they don't want it to escalate to a worse place. And I think that the important thing to understand is, while this is about Draymond's history, it's also about the league's history. And I know no one wants to talk about the malice in the palace or other ugly incidents of fans interfering in games, but I think that's part of it, is that Adam Silver understands that when you play with this line, there's always the risk of going across into something much more serious happening. And rather than wait for something that I would deem suspension appropriate, they're going to suspend early rather than late and hopefully stave off anything that escalates to a higher level. And not just in this series, but in any series that's happening in the playoffs.
It's sort of a perfect storm of circumstances. It's the player and his history. It's what followed the event, and it is wanting to make sure. I mean, and I will just say this. I'm not asking anyone to feel sorry for me, but try and conduct a serious conversation about a very important story in the NBA when all anyone is doing is laughing about everyone's hairline. I mean, I'm trying to have a conversation with Dominic. He says cul-de-sac. We almost lost Damian Woody over here. The big man almost fell out of his chair upon the word. Just the word cul-de-sac got you, didn't it, T-Wood?
Oh, it definitely got. That was very neat. My brother, that was very good. The cul-de-sac, that was a good one. I almost fell out my chair.
Which is, when they asked him about it, he essentially poo-pooed the idea that Sabonis might in any way be injured, which, for the record, he's listed right now as having a bruised sternum and questionable. And then when asked about it, he said, well, my foot had to go somewhere. I'm not that flexible that I could put it anywhere else. Does that... Why are you laughing, D. Wood?
Bro, Draymond put every pound of his body in Sabonis' chest right there. Don't tell me that wasn't intentional. Like you could just see it, man. He put every pound of it on him right there.
Let the record show Dominique has changed his jacket again, which is obviously becoming a running bit, which we like. But Dominique, the idea of a player's history factoring in here. You're the former president of the NFL Players Association.
Yeah.
The idea that a player's history would factor into the way a particular situation is adjudicated. Fair or not fair?
Yeah, I think that it would be ridiculous to assume that a player's history would not factor into a decision. But what I don't like is when they make hard and fast rules and then they subvert those rules, because we understand how to get suspended in the NBA. And this hasn't been one of the ways that you could get suspended in the NBA. So then punishing him further, it's not as if it was unprovoked, which I agree. Draymond probably could have avoided stepping on him. And he should show some remorse to his teammates for costing them his play in the rest of that game and then the subsequent suspension. However, I do think you have to understand in this context that Draymond got grabbed. It's a spur-of-the-moment type of situation, and having him thrown out of the game was punishment enough. It's not as if he was not punished. And then also, if it's about him taunting the crowd or talking trash to the crowd, then say that. But it doesn't seem that they're saying that. They're tying this to the other actions that he's had in the past. And that big final suspension in 2016 was a result of it being upgraded and it being his 15th technical foul that year. And that's why I got suspended, because that's a hard and fast rule. The players just want to know the rules. And if you're just going to change it on something that seems kind of fickle like this, then it feels really uncomfortable and it feels like a slippery slope going forward. At some point, it's going to be a player that we all kind of like and appreciate. And Draymond's polarizing, so I think it feels okay for so many of us to be like, all right, well, make Draymond pay the price.
What do you think here, Alan, as we consider the history that is involved here with him and the history of the league?
Yeah, first of all, the one thing I think is that houndstooth jacket is a bold choice, and I love it. Second thing, though, is that, listen, the criteria of suspension in the NBA when it comes to flagrants is it's 4-point system, right? So a flagrant 2, that's 2 points. So that doesn't lead to the suspension. So now you go aerial view and you go to his entire career, and that's what they decided to do. 11 years of a lot of technicals and a handful of suspensions, and they just felt like this is something that needs to be addressed. And the one way to address it is not to fine him because it's just money out of his pocket at this point in his career. That's not a big deal. He openly talks about that stuff all the time. How do you impact a player who means so much to his team on an emotional level? You take him away from his team. And in a critical, pivotal Game 3, he is not going to be available for his team. That personally can hurt a player. D-Wood, I know you can relate to this as an athlete, that you are not, and Nick as well. When you are taken away from your team and you're not there to help them now, and you're one of the emotional, you're one of their emotional leaders, and you can't be there in a must-win situation, that's got to hurt you a lot more than any fine can.
You feel like an outsider. And like I equated like you being injured, you can't play. You don't even feel like you're part of the team. And we talked about the stats of when Draymond's out there compared to when he's not. He makes a huge difference. Like he sets their defense. And like I think for me, the thing that I'm like disappointed as far as Draymond's concerned, it's like, bro, you know your history, you know how the league comes at you. Why would you put yourself in a situation where you could possibly get suspended? Like, you know this type of thing can happen.